Now joined by Nadeem, Razar, the Chief Executive of Microlise, and who's responsible for the whole Microlise Transport Conference. We've had a few sleepless nights there, Nadeem, but pulled it off yet again. Another fantastic day. It just gets bigger and bigger every year. I'm just so impressed with the turnout today. 2,000 registrations, I believe, and there could be, I don't know, looking around here, maybe 1,500 people here. It's amazing. It's a brilliant success, a great tribute to Microlise. We absolutely took a hats off to you for doing this. It's a great event. And the other thing I want to talk about, first of all, is the Microlise Driver of the Year Awards. The winners were presented last night at the dinner. It's really gratifying as one of the judges, when we didn't know the sex of the drivers when we were picking the winners, to see so many female drivers. Mm-hmm. So that must be quite pleasing for you as well, to see that that recognition for the female drivers.
Yeah, well, first thing I think is important to say that it's the largest group of drivers that we've ever taken into that competition. We actually have data for more than 210,000, but given the criteria of the awards, we had to eliminate some of them because they hadn't done enough mileage to qualify for some of the awards. But I think it's roughly almost half of the entire population of UK truck drivers, so that's an enormous pool, which is a testament to the people that won it. The fact that they're the 1% of 1% of 1%. I mean, they're clearly exceptional drivers. Although Mark's speech about, well, you just do the best you can. That was interesting philosophy for it. But yeah, I was really pleased to see that we had 3 women win the different categories, which I think is fantastic, because I think last year we had 1, I believe, and previous years we've had 0. Yes. So to see 3 coming through to being at the top of their league, etc. It's just great. It's just fantastic. I think it's great news for the industry. It shows the fact that we are taking on board diversity.
Yes. I mean, how would you like to see the industry use those wins last night? I mean, it's great news that they won, but if no one talks about it, no one shares that, it can be a little bit lost. I mean, how would you like to see the people here today, for example, take that back to their business and say, well, if they can do it, we can recruit more women?
Absolutely, and I think it was interesting that one of the questions that we had from the Unite in the Unite presentation was about whether somebody had recruited somebody from the ethnic minority segments, and there was quite a high number that had said yes, we have. And I think those sorts of statistics need to be more widely publicised, because it's important for this industry, particularly for drivers, to get a wider pool of accessible people into that profession, because it doesn't require a lot of physical qualifications. It doesn't necessarily require a lot of mental aptitude to drive a vehicle, but you have to go through some fairly stringent training. You have to go through the qualification. You have to be able to do it properly and safely, right? But there is an enormous pool that we could go at, and really we haven't historically been attracting the right candidates. And I think we're seeing some bits of progress here, which I think is very positive.
I mean, obviously Microlise, you grew from tracking into telematics, and you do a lot of work now with driver behaviour in the cab and that sort of thing. And I think one of the saddest comments I heard recently from an operator, we were talking at the driver shortage, said, "Oh, I've just turned the telematics off now because I've got 12 drivers. Either find out that 2 are rubbish, I can't afford to sack them. Mm-hmm. So what's the point of looking at the data?" And that seems an awfully negative way of looking at telematics data. Yeah. Is a stick to beat the drivers with and get rid of them if they're not performing, rather than a driver development tool. It seems completely the wrong way around to look at it to me.
I completely agree. I think that there are lots of organisations who show who are really great examples of how to manage drivers effectively, and they are using the tools that we provide, because they are just tools. They're not going to solve the problem for you if you don't use them correctly. They are just tools, but you have to use them correctly. And actually, you need to, one of the things we always say to our customers is, you need to provide some kind of incentive back for the drivers that gives them an incentive to improve. And where people have done that, we always see that the results are far, far better than organisations where They're really using it as a way of monitoring and enforcement of particular driving with their drivers, rather than using it as a carrot and an incentive for them to improve.
Well, I think it was very welcome to see that he had a representative from Unite on the Microlise Driver of the Year panel, which just goes a long way to show that unions are not dead against the idea of telematics being yet another spy in the cab just there to discipline drivers. They're obviously on board with the idea now that it is a driver development tool and a way of recognising good driving rather than penalising bad driving.
Well, I think there's two things, isn't it? One is safety. Nobody can argue whether you're a union or employee or an employer or driver. Everybody, will have to be on board with the fact that we're trying to make the world and driving much, much safer, right? And the second thing is, the environmental impact. Okay, it's very topical at the moment. It's been in the news over the last few weeks, etc. And everything that you can do to help a driver drive in a way that is more environmentally friendly, again, unions, drivers, employers shouldn't have anything to argue or complain about with those two things. And I think if you go in with that mindset and say, these are the two things that we're going to focus on trying to achieve with our drivers and the way that they drive, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yes, of course. I mean, we talk a lot about respect for drivers, and I think they too often get shunted out to the cab all day, forgotten about. And the other good thing about the sort of tools that you deliver, it does mean you can keep in better touch with the drivers and make them feel part of the family rather than being very isolated out on the road. Is that something you'd like to see more of the operators using it for?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that the number of users, the office-based, desktop, PC-based users that use our system are, in the sort of 70,000 users or so that we've got. But actually, the number of drivers that we've got is 3 or 4 times that figure. Yeah. So actually, we look at it as the people that actually use our system more than anybody else is the drivers. Yeah. And if we can't make their life easier and better by using our system, there's that's 80% of our user base that we're not making happy with the system. So it is our duty really to try and make sure that all of our users, but particularly that group, are able to interact with our system and interact with it in a way that's a positive for their working life.
Yes. There's a lot of talk around autonomous vehicles and driverless cars, driverless trucks. That might be something which might be putting off people actually becoming a driver, because you think, well, there's no point in me paying a lot of money to get a license, because there's going to be autonomous vehicles coming along soon. I mean, are the tools you're developing helping us push down towards that road? Are they very much designed to help drivers do a better job?
I think that they're more about driving safely and driving in a more economic and environmentally friendly way. I don't see drivers disappearing for a whole host of reasons, because in reality, okay, you can get a vehicle from A to B quite easily, but then delivering the goods isn't something that anyone's looking at automating today. Yeah. So whether you're doing home delivery and you're actually providing that doorstep experience, you still need a person to do that. So the fact that there's a vehicle that might autonomously get to the front of your door, well, okay, still needs to have a person there that's actually going to do that not the last mile, but the last 5 meters, and give that great experience to the end. So I think the drivers, the driver skill set will slowly change and evolve over time, whereas it's going to be less about how good are you at driving, because the vehicles are becoming more and more intelligent and much more safer, so they'll stop you driving badly. But it's going to be more about customer service. It's going to be more about how you are actually dealing with your end customer and the experience that you're giving them.
Yes. And just looking at a little bit ahead, perhaps next year's event, what are the developments that you're working on which will be feeding through to maybe the conference themes next year and getting into vehicles in the next few years? What's the next step for Microlise? So
a lot of interesting cameras, and it was also interesting to see that from one of the polls that we did, optimization was also featured quite highly on customers' agenda. I think the third thing is that use of big data. We've been talking about big data for quite a long time, okay, and we are doing certain things with it, but the rise of artificial intelligence and ways of actually getting that data to help you run a better operation and for that to happen in more of an automatic way, as opposed to people having to go and analyse data and figure out what that means, and then trying to change plans, etc., to try and optimise them. I think we're going to see more of that happening far more automatically, and far more use of intelligent machines and learning machines doing a lot of things to help improve operations.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that next year, and I'm sure next year's event will be even bigger than this one. So well done again. You did a great job. Thank you, Nadeem.
Thank you.
Thank you.